So hey guys, welcome to my review of Batman and Robin issue number 12. In the last issue of Batman and Robin, we had Damian Wayne taking out Jason Todd to prove that he is the better Robin out of all of them. And he does it in a dirty way by, telling Jason that you're a failure and Batman doesn't love you, you're the worst Robin out of all of us. And basically he defeats Jason and takes his Red Hood helmet as a prize of, proving that he actually was the better Robin, and he defeated Jason. And then we also saw that Terminus and his new gang of villains are starting to run amok in Gotham City, creating a whole mass of chaos by basically hurting innocent people by branding them with the Batman symbol. And they're doing this to actually lure out the Batman into broad daylight, or because right now, the sun's coming up, so they want to actually lure out the Batman so they can defeat him. And that's where issue number 12 picks up. We have Batman facing off against Terminus, and Damian fights against the new villains. So that's basically all that happens, because Terminus wants a one-on-one fight, leaving Damian to fight off against all the other villains. And while Damian's fighting against all these other villains, he does okay until later on Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, and Tim Drake come along and actually team up with Damian to defeat the rest of the villains. And, Batman gets into this sort of armor-looking suit and, starts fighting against Terminus until Terminus actually dies, because his life in this world is over. As we've seen in the previous issues, he seems to sort of has his skin starting to rot and whatever. And it's finally his time. He dies, but this wasn't his generally real plan. His plan was to actually just distract Batman long enough for him to die, and then release this missile that's going to hit Gotham City, destroying it. And he just wanted to be there in the front row seat to see Batman fail to save Gotham. And also, he brought Batman into broad daylight, because it's breaking dawn right now. It's actually the sun's coming up, so he took Batman out of his element from the night and brought him into broad daylight, which is really interesting. I liked how he did that. Other than that, that's the end of Terminus, and actually Batman flies off doing this Iron Man sort of thing, which in a way his suit does remind me of Iron Man, because it's not like that big gigantic mechanical suit he had in the Batman series when he was fighting against the Talons. This suit actually just wraps around his body like an armor suit, and it felt like Iron Man, because he actually did what Iron Man did in Avengers. He actually flew up and grabbed the missile, redirecting it towards the ocean so it's going to avoid hitting Gotham, and he, throws it into the ocean and sees the missile explode there, and that's how he saves Gotham. Sort of like how he did in The Dark Knight Rises as well. So many missiles, or so many references, or me making references to Avengers and then Dark Knight Rises, my god. Oh well. But all in all, this is the end of the Terminus storyline, and also the end of Damian Wayne trying to prove himself as a Robin. Because in the end of this issue, you guys are waiting to see, is Damian Wayne going to fight against Dick Grayson? Well, he's not, because Dick actually throws his baton, or Eskrima sticks, towards Damian's, proving that, okay, I accept you as a Robin. You don't need to prove anything to me, okay? I already accept you for who you are, and you already wear that R across your chest pretty well, so don't stop doing what you're going to do, man. And I'm not going to fight you, okay? So here, take my Eskrima sticks, and that's just to prove that I accept you as a Robin. Which ends that whole entire feud that Damian wants to prove himself as the better Robin. And that's how this all ends. Now, my thoughts on this 3-issue story arc, which really didn't do much, because, well, I mean, it felt like it's filler. Yeah, it is filler, because it's only 3 issues. But I felt like, there's a lot of interesting aspects thrown in here. Like the villains that were physically scarred by Batman became villains and tried to, take out the Batman. And also with the inclusion of trying to see Damian prove himself that he is the better Robin out of all of them. He already proved himself to Bruce, but I don't think he really had to prove anything. I mean, if anything, he could have proved something later on through the issue, like if he did have more issues with Jason Todd or Tim Drake. And generally speaking, I know Damian would have fought against Dick. I know some of you people are wondering, he wouldn't do that because they worked together. They were Batman and Robin in the first place. Damian worked with Dick, and they're basically, friends. Damian even admitted that Dick Grayson was his only friend, and, they can't fight against each other, but knowing Damian, knowing his personality, he would have done it. But also knowing Dick Grayson, I felt like it was a good send-off to end this whole rivalry or Damian trying to prove himself, was the fact that I think it means the most to him that Dick says it. Because, like I said, Dick is Damian's best friend or his only friend, This is the guy he used to work with when Bruce wasn't around, and they, gotten really close to each other. And I like it when these guys are actually talking to each other and, interacting with one another. It's just really, really nice to see these two together sometimes. And I think what means the most to Damian is because the fact that it comes from Dick, his friend, and also it comes from the first Robin. To see, Dick Grayson do that, and, it means a lot because, of course, he's the first Robin. He was a Robin that everybody knows about. Dick, Nightwing. He was the first Robin, the really campy, happy-go-lucky Robin, And it's really important that I think that Dick Grayson was the one who says, you don't need to prove anything to me at all. You don't even need to prove anything to Jason, Tim, or anybody else. Okay, you wear that R on your chest, and that's like saying like he's passing down the mantle to Damian, saying like, I approve of you being Robin. Don't need my consent, don't need Tim's or Jason's, don't worry about it, which I felt was nice. And I also know that Dick Grayson, what he did was very, very, Dick Grayson-like. For him to admit that, there's no need to fight is actually something I would expect him to do, and that's something I actually liked, that he wasn't willing to actually fight Damian to prove anything. He knew Damian from the start, and his personality just shined here. He just threw the ice cream sticks and says, here you go. There's no need to fight. Peace, like there's peace here, between you and me, we're friends. We don't need this. And that's what I like. That's what Dick Grayson should be doing, That's how I really liked how it ended. Other than that, nothing really much happened. I didn't really mind the storyline. Actually, it was interesting to see. Actually, I love this issue because of the fact that all the Robins came together to fight against all the other villains that Terminus was working with. And it was just really nice to see them. And I'll actually show you a page, actually, of the 4 Robins together, which is really interesting. Would have been great if it was the 5 Robins, but seeing as Stephanie Brown is out of the picture, yeah, let me show you first. Actually, when I look at Terminus's costume, he reminds me of Juggernaut. Look at his helmet. It looks like the Juggernaut helmet. And it's just like wrapped around his head, like a dome shape, and he's really buff and big. Sort of reminds me of like the Juggernaut. And I think I remember he reminded me of somebody else's, his design. I can't remember it for the love of God, but oh well. And also here's the armor I said that he actually wraps himself around. He actually goes into his Batmobile right here. He goes in there and he comes out in this full body armor suit that I said looks like, an Iron Man suit. But Batman has a lot of, suits and whatnots. But yeah, hold on. I think there's a page. Yeah, right here. So this right here was the very, very best page about this comic, or the best thing about this comic was you see Dick Grayson, you see Jason Todd, you see Tim Drake, and you see Damian right there. Watching Batman actually go up and grab this missile and redirecting it. And also to mention that you can see Damian right here. He's grabbing his hoodie or his cape really, really tight because Batman can't stop it. He's trying to, but, he has to redirect it by destroying the guidance system or whatever. And Damian's really scared that he's actually going to, die. His father's going to die. See, he still fears that his father will die. Because in I think issue number 8 or issue number something, I think Batman, but yeah, this is also cool too to see Batman in broad daylight. But yeah, Damian did fear for his father's death once. And also here's, you know, Dick Grayson throwing his ice cream stick towards Damian saying, you know, you don't need to prove anything. And that's very Dick Grayson-like right there. Other than that, that's pretty much it. That's all I wanted to talk about. I just generally like that aspect of Dick Grayson being the one who's the first Robin to tell Damian, that you really don't need to prove anything to me, that you're a good Robin. So yeah, from me, the first Robin, telling you that's okay, don't worry about it. And I really did like that. Like I said, I do like Dick Grayson a lot. So yeah, it's really awesome to see these two actually interacting with each other, talking to each other. But yeah, other than that, it's all my thoughts on this issue. I would actually rate this as a whole, like all 3 issues. If I were to rate this as a storyline, I would rate it a 3.5 out of 5. But in this single issue, I would rate it actually a 4 out of 5. But all in all, the storyline is a 3.5 for me. Because, like I said, like it's just filler. It really didn't do much. But it's still nice to read. It's not like a boring filler, but it still did something here. Not a whole lot, but still did something. But other than that, I actually rate this personal issue a 4 out of 5. But yeah, I can't wait to see what's going to happen next, because in the end of this issue, we actually saw like issue number 0. It says something about Robin becoming from a hero to a 0. So that's interesting there. I want to see what happens there with Damian. Still, like I said, I think a lot of people read this comic book for Damian's character development and Bruce's. There's not a lot of Bruce development here, but there's a lot of Damian. So that's what I really like to see. My friend actually likes to see Damian's character development. She thinks that Damian should actually have friends, and I agree. Damian should be out there in the world. He shouldn't be confined in Wayne Manor, being all dark. He needs some friends in his life, you know, like Dick. He needs to interact with him a bit more, team up with Dick Grayson. And he is actually teaming up with him in an issue of Batman Incorporated, which I am, you know, interested in reading, because he actually, I don't read it, okay, I don't collect it, but I do know that basically Damian finally is getting his second hero persona, like how Dick becomes Nightwing, Tim Drake becomes Red Robin, Jason becomes Red Hood, Damian becomes Redbird, which I felt like he was making fun of, you know, Tim Drake, saying like, oh, you call yourself Red Robin, I'm gonna call myself Redbird because, you know, I'm taking your red and you're a robin, you're a bird, so I'm gonna call myself Redbird to make fun of you. But I don't think that's its intention. But other than that, that's why I think that's what something Damian would think. But yes, I went off tangent there. But yeah, that's my review of Batman and Robin issue number 12. Hope you guys like and enjoy this review, and I'll talk to you guys later. So see you guys.